Hello, my friends. This is Lynda Lippin, and welcome to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Well, hello, everybody. It's Lynda Lippin, host of the Pilates Goddess podcast, and I hope you are all doing well today. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Pilates. You probably guessed that one. But I'm going to be discussing how to know whether what you're doing in terms of your exercise really is Pilates. Because frankly, there's a whole lot of crap out there saying that it's Pilates that really isn't. And if you've been listening to the podcast for a while or have been following me online at all or have ever worked with me or worked for me, you know that I'm pretty open to a whole lot of things within Pilates, okay? I'm open for being at home and using a foam roller sometimes instead of a spine corrector for doing some of the same exercises. I use a type 4, I use bands, I use tubing, I use things to mimic what I know to be the exercises in Pilates that use springs and magic circles and other things. So I'm not averse, just so we all know, to this. But there are a few things out there in the marketplace right now that really concern me. One of these is any single collection of bands, of tubing, of anything resistance that comes with any kind of door or wall anchor is now being sold as a complete Pilates resistance and toning package. Okay, there's a few that I've looked at online. And one of them in particular is really just a bunch of Slastics tubing. And if you're wondering what Slastics is, I'll put this in the show notes as well. But it's a brand of resistance tubing that I actually used to purchase when I was in the Caribbean, because tubing is mostly made out of latex rubber. And working in the Caribbean, frankly, everybody is constantly covered in some kind of oily or oil-based substance, right? I'm working at a spa resort island. People are getting massages, they're putting on hand cream, they're putting on sunscreen all the time, and everybody's hands are pretty much completely covered in oil. And you may remember from health class discussions about condoms that latex, rubber, and oil or petroleum products do not go well together because oil breaks down the rubber. And so if you've been wondering, like if you teach Pilates or you do stuff at home and you've got bands and tubing and you've been noticing that they get sticky or they start getting brittle, that's literally the rubber breaking down due to sometimes just the natural oil in your skin or oil in your skin combined with sweat. So all Slastics is they take that tubing, they cover the tubing in a nylon wrap, and the nylon wrap is scrunched up, kind of like a hair scrunchie, so that it stretches out as the band stretches out, and therefore your band is protected, and you have, this lovely, and it kind of looks a little bit nicer too, because it doesn't just look like thick surgical tubing with handles hanging on the wall, right? It looks a little cleaner and a little better. So there is a product that's being sold online right now. It was in my Instagram feed. And all this product is a set of Slastics tubing with handles. It comes with actually a decent set of kind of padded neoprene handles or hand straps and loops for your feet, so those are nice and kind of comfortable. And it comes with a door anchor that goes around the door vertically and has different attachment loops on it so that you can actually change the height of where the resistance is coming from all the way down to the floor to all the way up. And, you can, in fact, with this, mimic quite a few exercises. You can mimic some of the leg spring work. You can mimic some of the arm spring work. You can mimic some standing things. I mean, there are definitely things you can do with it. But, they popped the word Pilates in the name of the product, and they're selling this product for $220. If you bought all of the things separately that are in the product, it would probably cost you less than $100. But get it packaged together with a little workout poster and maybe a few workout videos, and suddenly it is a $220 Pilates event that you can purchase on Instagram or Facebook. I've seen others. There's something out, and I wish I could remember what it's called because it's got kind of a memorable and funny name. But it is, once again, kind of a metal pole with wheels on each side of it. And you can get resistance bands that attach to the pole. And you can do things where you hold the resistance bands in your hands and you have your feet on the pole and you can push out and in, similar to how you would, say, doing stomach massage on a reformer or something like that. But again, this thing costs like $300. And it's a very simple item. It probably costs under $100 to produce. And once again, it's not even a great piece of equipment to begin with, and it's certainly not a great piece of Pilates equipment. So you're going to see all over the place all kinds of crap that says that it's Pilates, that says that you can do all of the Pilates exercises on it, that say that they are, replacements for the reformer and the chair and all of the things. Now, what's interesting is that there are a few things out there that really do mimic Pilates equipment, okay? Peak Pilates used to sell a Pilates wall apparatus that had a rollback bar and other things that attached to it that was very similar to a tower unit or a wall unit that you would see in a Pilates studio. And they sold, an inexpensive version of it, once again, using elastic tubing for resistance instead of springs. And that was fine. For a long time, there was a Malibu chair. And in fact, I think the Malibu chair is still around and different versions of it are still around. But, it's a smaller, somewhat lighter version of the Pilates Wunda chair. And while it may not be as heavy or as perfect as a studio quality Wunda chair, and that's WUNDA, in case you're wondering, which is what Joe called it. It is still a decent chair, and it's a decent option, and it's under $400, whereas you're not going to get a studio quality Pilates chair for probably less than, I think, $700 to $800 right now, if not even more. There are also some decent quality home reformers out there, and Joseph Pilates himself made a home reformer that sat on the floor and, had springs and bars and all those things. And you can still find, decent versions of home reformers. There are a few less of them now, simply because of the prevalence of, chain Pilates studios and big box gyms that have Pilates programs and all of these other things. So you need to be a little discerning when you look at these quote unquote, Pilates equipment replacement products. But I would also encourage you to look at what exercises are being done in the studio if you are going out for Pilates. So over the past couple of weeks, there has been a very viral video of Harry Styles doing Pilates. And if you look at the video, I was actually very heartened by the video because he is doing Pilates on a Graz reformer, and that's the company that, did some work for Joe Pilates. And he's doing the twist and reach on the short box, which is an exercise that pretty much every Pilates teacher does know or should know. And it's a hard exercise, my friends, but he's doing it and he looks like he's working hard. And took some shit about it actually online because people were like, why is he look like he's working so hard when he's just doing this simple exercise? But something to understand here is that no Pilates exercises are that simple. Okay, they're all full body exercises. They all require full body control and they're hard. And if you're doing Pilates in any kind of classical order or an order close to what Joseph Pilates taught and invented, by the time you get to the short box, you're like mid-workout. And so you're a little tired already. And then you're, asked to do these kind of very intense abdominal exercises, which is, what you see Harry doing in the video. So I found it interesting that there was kind of, that he was taking a little shit for that because he's actually doing Pilates. And I can't tell you the number of videos that I see of celebrities who are supposedly doing Pilates who are doing no such thing, who are doing things that are unrecognizable. So here's the interesting rub of it all, is that you can in fact do Pilates exercises on non-Pilates equipment. And all I mean by that is that Joseph Pilates developed very specific pieces of equipment, right? You've got the universal reformer, you've got the Wonder chair, you've got the high chair or the electric chair, you've got your pedipole, you have your tower or wall system and the Cadillac. You've got your barrels, your spine corrector, your small barrel, your high barrel. And you've got, a few other things as well. You would normally see gymnastic Swedish bars in a Pilates studio because there are exercises that we do on that. And those do include pull-ups. But it's also a fact that you can do non-Pilates exercises on Pilates equipment. And this is where things can get a little fishy and things can get a little scary. So if you go online and you say go on Instagram or go on TikTok and just do a search for, Pilates equipment videos, you will see all kinds of shit. You will see people trying to balance on a ball or a bozu on top of a moving reformer while they're, holding weights and trying to move straps around. You will see people hanging their full body weight on the Cadillac push-through bar, which is not made to hold your full body weight. You will see people doing all kinds of stuff. And fortunately or unfortunately, I also see these same questions popping up in Pilates instructor groups on social media. So I'll have people asking about clam, side lying clam, right? When your knees are at 90 degrees, your feet are together and you just lift up the knee. And, why clients might be having a specific issue with doing the clamshell exercise. Well, guess what? It's not a Pilates exercise. Now, lots of Pilates teacher training programs have added that in as a Pilates exercise, but it's not. And it was never part of Joe Pilates Sidekick series. His Sidekick series is front back. There's bicycles, there's sidekicks, there's développés to the side, or basically a side bicycle for those of you who don't have the ballet background. But there's nothing involving a clam, all right, or a clamshell exercise as we know it. Now, once again, I'm not averse to people teaching what they want to teach. There are plenty of effective exercises that aren't necessarily Pilates exercises. But in the interest of being honest and having full disclosure to our clients, I think we as teachers owe it to our clients, to ourselves, to our colleagues to understand the difference between the exercises that Joseph Pilates invented and developed and put in a certain order to be done on equipment that he invented and that he constructed to be in a certain size, to have certain angles, to have certain relationships of the human body to the equipment. And I think we owe ourselves and our clients at least that. I have often been known to be in the Pilates studio and say to somebody, I'm giving you this exercise that is not really a Pilates exercise. It's not something that we know Joseph Pilates to have taught, but I'm giving it to you for this reason because it's going to be good for you for this. No one ever has a problem with that. But when I hear people who are, say, getting hurt or injured or getting overuse, aches and pains in their Pilates classes, and when I ask them what exercises are causing these issues, and the exercises that they're giving me are not actual Pilates exercises, then I have a huge issue with that because suddenly people are blaming Pilates. And they're not even doing actual Pilates exercises. Also be aware that there are entire chains of supposed Pilates studios. Legree Pilates, for example, where the reformers bear no resemblance to Joseph Pilates equipment, where they've changed the equipment, where they've made the reformers heavier, where they've made certain things more adjustable, where they're doing things at a very fast pace and they're doing it to fast, loud music. This is not the way Joseph Pilates taught. In fact, in classical Pilates, we're often taught to use the tempo of the human heartbeat to teach class. Not to bring in music, not to bring in other things, but to use that tempo. So a lot of times if you're in a classical Pilates studio, you'll hear us snapping, right? Or clapping, or maybe just hitting our thighs, right? You're doing the 100 and we're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you hear the snap. Sometimes in a really busy Pilates studio, like when I was at Real Pilates, we had to stop people from clapping and snapping. Because sometimes we would have 5 or 6 privates going on the floor at once, and maybe even a class coming in, and it was just way too much because we were all, on a slightly different beat, depending on when we started our clients, and so it could get to be a lot. I know that some of this may sound petty. Right? You're like, people are moving, they're exercising, Lynda, who cares? But it does matter because Pilates is not yoga, because Pilates is not calisthenics, although there's some elements of it. that Pilates is not weight training, although there are some elements of it. That Pilates is its own system, okay? And it is a large system, but it's a system that was developed by an actual human being named Joseph Pilates, who invented equipment and worked with springs and other things that go along with that particular method. And you cannot just take any old piece of equipment that you have, somehow remastered and tag the name Pilates on it and think that that's going to be okay. And that's not going to hurt people. Okay? Conversely, you can't just teach anything you want on Pilates equipment and call it Pilates. So if you're listening to this and you're a client and you're thinking about the Pilates that you do, say in studio or online, depending on how you exercise, and you're questioning right now whether what you do is actually Pilates, good on you. And if you can, try to find out. Ask your teachers where they were certified. Ask your teachers if they're teaching you something on the equipment that doesn't feel quite right. Is this an actual Pilates exercise? Or is this something that you just decided we could do on the Pilates equipment? There should be an answer, by the way. If you're doing something and it doesn't feel quite right, ask why you're doing it. I also find it interesting that I see a lot of Pilates teachers being very concerned with warming their clients up. And I have to tell you that one of the beautiful things about more classical Pilates, and you can do classical Pilates on all kinds of Pilates equipment, by the way, as well as the mat, is that the warm-up is kind of built into the system. So if you are a client or a teacher and you've never done any standing footwork, for example, which is a series of very controlled squats, basically done in different leg positions and done in a very controlled manner, in very similar positions to what we do with footwork on the reformer or seated pumping on any of the chairs or with leg springs. If you've never done the standing footwork, then you're missing out actually on a great mobility and stability warm-up. If you consistently skip the 100 because somebody has convinced you that the 100 is just too hard to do at the beginning of a workout and requires, lots of warming up before it, then you're kind of missing out because frankly, with the 100, you're steady, you're stable, it's infinitely modifiable. If you've got bad back, bad neck, osteoporosis, whatever, hip replacement, whatever's going on, there's a version of it that you can still do. And that is an exercise in breathing. That is an exercise in abdominal endurance, stability, and breathing. There is nothing in that exercise that requires a warm-up, frankly. So the warm-up, the work is built into the system of the exercises. And if you follow the actual order of the exercises, even if you're modifying or pulling different things out of the order, you will see how each exercise prepares the body for the exercise that comes next. So, sometimes, well, not sometimes, like 5 days a week, I teach a 30-minute osteoporosis-friendly Pilates class. I'm continuing to teach them on Revel's platform through the end of this month, and then they move over to my own Strong Bones Pilates Studio platform. And you can find out more at lindalippin.com. But when I teach these classes, even though they're just half an hour, and even though they're completely modified for osteoporosis, I still follow the order. So whether I'm teaching 5 best exercises for osteoporosis, whether I'm teaching a strong bones Pilates mat flow, whether I'm teaching Pilates for neck and shoulder pain, everyone always starts with some version of standing footwork. It's true. From that standing footwork, everybody comes down, and there's always the 100. You may be keeping your head down for the 100 with osteoporosis, but we're doing the 100. The legs are coming up. We're working those abdominals. We're working the breath. We're opening the collarbones. We're doing things. Okay, if people can't do the roll up, that's fine. If they can't do the roll over, great. I do some bridging at that point. And then we do some hamstring stretching and some leg circles. You see where I'm going with this. Most of the ab series is fine for them. And then we do some side kicks. We do a little bit of extension and hyperextension, a little bit of work on all fours, maybe some plank or some leg pull front and back. And then I bring them back up to standing in a spine-safe way. So again, it's easy for me. It's easy for me to put together even a slightly different workout every time with maybe a different combination of standing footwork, with maybe a little bit of the wall exercises, with, there's again, you can do some of the exercises in different relationships to gravity. For example, if I'm working with folks with osteoporosis who can't necessarily do a double leg stretch because their head's down and maybe their abs are weak, and so they really can't find a comfortable back position and extend their legs out, then I might bring them into a different relationship to gravity, in which case we are kind of in a plank, and then we bend the knees and crouch back and go back into plank, which is essentially the same movement in a different relationship to gravity. So there's so many places you can go within the Pilates exercises and within the Pilates system. And we don't, as teachers, have to be all things to all people. Okay, we don't. My clients do yoga. My clients go to SoulCycle. My clients go and do personal training. Some of them do CrossFit. So, they do all kinds of stuff when they're not with me. Some of them are competitive athletes. Some of them are performing. Again, they do stuff with their bodies when they're not with me. And with me, they are expecting to do Pilates. Okay, they're not expecting to do all of the other things. So I think both as clients and as Pilates teachers, we need to get very clear. Okay, we need to get very clear as to what we are expecting out of Pilates. And what I'm telling you is you can go online, and I'm going to put a few links in the show notes. You can see the lists of Pilates exercises that Joseph Pilates himself, put together. You can see the order that those exercises are in. And interestingly enough, and probably because he was very German and ordered, Joe has a similar list of exercises on each piece of equipment. So almost everywhere you're starting with some kind of lower body mobility with torso stability work. And then you start to move into flexion, extension, rotation, and different things from there. But we should know this, okay? If you're doing Pilates, or teaching Pilates, I really encourage you to spend just a tiny bit of time doing a little bit of research. Look at some of the books that are out there. They're all on Amazon. They're all in the bookstore. Most of them are at the library. You can read the Joseph Pilates books, which are interesting for historical value, but you can see how he talks about his method. Okay, you can look at books from different teachers of different backgrounds and kind of see, and that will give you a good sense of when different exercises are getting added in and different combinations of exercises. But I'm here to tell you that I've been through this. I've been through this personally. I've gone through the feeling kind of constricted within the classical Pilates system, branching myself outside of it. And then at the end, I came right back home to it. And even though I am perfectly comfortable teaching with bands and teaching with the Type 4 and using a roller and using a ball and using different things, what I know that what I'm teaching is Pilates. And if it's an exercise that is outside of Pilates, I let my clients know. This is not Pilates, but we're doing it anyway because it's good for you for this reason. Now, if you're a Pilates teacher, you should always be able to answer those clients' questions, okay? What is this? Why are we doing it? What's it for? What's the point? You should be able to answer. Is this an actual Pilates exercise or not? If you're a Pilates professional, you should be able to answer, okay? And clients should be able to ask. And I understand that some of you are doing non-Pilates workouts that say they're Pilates and you're having a great time doing that. And that's fabulous. Have at it. I encourage you to do movement and exercise that makes you feel good and makes you feel and function better. But I wish that you weren't necessarily under the impression that what you were doing is Pilates if it's not. So let's just try to get clear on that. Let's just try to get clear on what we're teaching, on what we're doing, on what Joseph Pilates taught, and how what Pilates is different from the other forms of exercise out there, instead of consistently trying to absorb the other forms of exercise into Pilates. All right? Because that does not serve any of us. So my friends, I hope that you enjoyed this episode. I think there's a lot of food for thought here. I would love to hear from you, hear what your experience is, hear what you have to say about these exercises and these different systems. And I would love to get some questions and feedback from you. So I would love it if you would head on over to pilatesgoddess.com. You can send me a message there. You can leave me a voicemail there. You can also DM me anywhere on social media or leave, a comment under one of my posts. But I would really, really, really love to hear from you guys this week. I would love to hear what you're doing in your studio. I would love to hear if you were even aware that there was a difference between Pilates and other exercise systems. That you knew that there was a man named Joseph Pilates, and whether you are very clear with your teachers and your clients and yourself as to what you're doing or as to what you're teaching. All right, so have a great rest of your week. I'll be here again with you guys next Tuesday, and talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the Pilates Goddess podcast. Music brought to you by Nerd Salad. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts, especially if you liked it. And please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks.